Welcome to another edition, Addicted to the Q. Tonight we have me, Brian. You know me. We have the bum, Kevin Hesse. We have Brad with Meets My Mistress.
Yeah, I can't see it.
And our special guest tonight is Mr. Dave Eckart, a food and
beverage journalist.
Food and beverage journalist.
It's Dave Eckart 6.0. I've reinvented myself several times over the past 40 years.
Well, I'm excited. I got to meet Dave, I think, a little over a year ago or 2 years ago through an Uppercut event.
Yeah.
Dave,
up at the farm, wasn't it, Kevin?
What's that?
Up at the farm?
Yeah, it was for for one of their farm to table events. So it was great. My wife enjoyed a lot of your wines. Let's just say that we had a good evening. So
that's why I do a really strong pour.
Yes. Oh yeah. Believe me, we got our money's worth. That's
there
for
you
sure.
Go.
Yeah. Yes. And we'll get more into those events. That's for sure. But Dave, you're you're a local celebrity here in Kansas City, and actually not even just locally. I mean, you've kind of done stuff all over the United States and kind of a world traveler. Just kind of give us a little synopsis, a bio of what you've done. I mean, I could run down the list. I saw a bunch of stuff earlier, but just talk to us about it. What are your highlights? What are you most proud of?
So I'll kind of go, chronologically. That's the easiest for people to follow. I went to school. I'm a Chicago native. I was fortunate enough to have an ability to take a radio class and a television class in high school, and decided that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with radio and television, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I chose the best available school in state for that type of program and that type of major and minor, and as far away from Chicago as I could get. So I went to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, which is about a 6-hour drive from Chicago. It's way closer to Missouri and Kentucky than it is to anything else in Illinois.
So
I
was
4 years at Saluki, majored in radio, television, minored in journalism. At first, I thought I wanted to be a DJ. Did a little stint at that, and the program director says, "Gee, you're really bad. You got to go do some news." And so I thought, well, that's not very nice. But I went and did some news, and I never looked back. I did news, weather, sports. I worked at 8 different television stations across the country, including starting in Terre Haute, Indiana, Little Rock, Arkansas, St. Louis, where I met my wife, now of 41 years almost, Boise, Idaho, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here in Kansas City, 5 years at Channel 9 from 89 to 94, then up in Chicago at WGN. And I thought that was the panacea. I thought I made it to Market 3. I was making a good salary. It was my hometown, and I absolutely hated it because I hated the way they conducted themselves in gathering news. I was expected to go out and knock on the doors of families who had family members killed in drive-by shootings and things like that. And it just wasn't me. And I got really burned out on that. And so I kind of had drifted into food and wine on a personal level and thought, well, maybe I could combine what I know professionally, writing, editing, producing, hosting, with what I'm really passionate about personally, food, wine, travel, hospitality. So I met a guy who had contacts with PBS, and we pitched them on a show. They liked it. And so I started on another track that lasted almost 12 years called Culinary Travels with Dave Eckart, which I did 275 half-hour self-produced, self-funded, self-written, directed, and hosted half-hour shows on 6 continents.
A quick shout out to our sponsors, King Louie's Meat Apostle Barbecue Rub, Inkbird Thermometers, Rum Runners Barbecue, Butcher Barbecue and all their goodies, Springer Mountain Farms Chicken, the best charcoal out there, the Good Charcoal Company, the only Vortex drum, Hunsaker Drums. Now back to Brian, Brad, and the bum.
The only continent I didn't get to was Antarctica because I couldn't figure out a reason to go to Antarctica for food. Unless I'm going to eat penguin or something, I couldn't figure out how to get there. So didn't do that. Got that show off the ground. Didn't make much money. My joke about PBS is there's no ceiling. So if you can go get, Weekend Bum Barbecue to go give you $1 million and be a sponsor, that's great, but there's no floor. They don't give you anything. So you literally spend 90% of your time scrambling to try to produce the shows, and only 10% of the time actually dedicated to the shows. But I did 275, so I was pleased with that. 2008 recession kind of killed it. All the marketing and PR money went away, and did it for a couple more years, but it was really hard pushing that rock up the hill, and drifted out of that, and just kind of drifted into doing various food and wine and beverage things here in town. We moved back from Chicago in 2001, and we thought it was a good place to raise the kids. The kids came down here, went to school at Pembroke. My son went to St. Louis University. My daughter went to Washington University. So I'm really plugged into the restaurant community here, and started writing articles for Food and Wine Magazine, not Food and Wine Magazine, for KC Homes and Style Magazine and Healthy Kansas City. Started doing some morning segments for Fox 4, and have just kind of hung around, creating these food and beverage contacts, cultivating them, curating them, and trying to help people in the business. And for me, it's about good food, it's about good wine, it's about hospitality, but it's really about the people behind the scenes. I really love to support the businesses who have really great folks running them, and help them, lift them up.
Well, that's great. That's quite a resume, and a lot of accomplishments.
Thank you.
As somebody I've moved around quite a bit in my lifetime over the years, not near as much as you, but it's always neat how you kind of recreate and find something new when you move to a new community, and it
almost forces you to, doesn't it?
It does. You get out. It starts with people, but honestly, before you know anybody, you're going to find, okay, where do we go eat? Where do we find? Where do the locals eat? I don't want to eat at the same chain that I ate at when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona versus Las Vegas. And
right.
So you're trying to find local foods, and then you meet people, and they always say food brings people together. And I think that's a testament to what all the shows you've done and everything over the years.
Well, and I agree. And these days it's so much, if I had done Culinary Travels with Dave Eckart, maybe 5 to 8 to 10 years, a little bit later, I'd probably still be doing it. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. If I was doing it now, I'd have, 3 million followers on Facebook. Taylor Swift would be following Culinary Travels with Dave Eckart. It would be awesome. But I don't regret that, because I actually kind of led the way. In many ways, I was doing this when they were still doing, Emeril Lagasse in the studio saying "bam" every time he cooked something.
Yeah.
So I was really taking people right to the source of what was local and indigenous and delicious. And the experiences I've had are, a dozen lifetimes worth of where I've been, what I've seen, whom I've met, what I've tasted, and the stories I've heard. I was never about going to the most exotic location or trying the weirdest thing. I was really about giving people a sense of what somebody's life is like in Tuscany, in Chile, in Thailand, wherever it might be that I am, how they live, what they eat, why they eat, where they shop, what the products are, and really just shine the light. I wasn't the star of the show. I was just the conduit to get people's stories out there.
Yep. No, that's fantastic. That's definitely. I guess kind of what gave you the drive for food? What drew you to food and beverage that, kind of as a side that grew into now what is your life?
That's a really interesting question. And I focused on that a lot because honestly, growing up with a single mom who was a teacher, who didn't like to cook, who didn't have enough time to cook, who didn't really care about cooking. When your specialty is canned tuna casserole with a potato chip crust, it's a pretty low bar. And I'm not criticizing her. It's just that's who she was. And so I really was really naive and inexperienced, even through college. I mean, in college, I would go to the store and I would buy turkey legs because they were cheap. And I had an air fryer, not even an air fryer, like a Fry Baby or a Fry Daddy.
Oh, yeah, the Fry Daddies.
I would buy a 20-pound bag of potatoes and a package of turkey wings, and that would be my dinner for a week, And I didn't even know you're supposed to cook turkey wings low and slow to cook them all the way through. I'd cook them in an hour and then wonder why they were raw and tasted awful, But what really happened to me was my wife. We met in St. Louis. And she grew up, her mom was a good cook. She was a good cook. When we got married, she started making these really wonderful meals, especially on like Sunday nights. We would have a really special family meal. And I just thought, I can't be drinking Bush Light here at these dinners. I need to up my game a little bit. And so I started like hanging out at the local wine shops and talking to people and meeting people who are really into wine. Started buying stuff. It's all trial and error. I think you could read a lot about like the subject of wine or wine and food pairing, but the real key is to try a lot and see what you like and then kind of follow that path. And so by the time I got up to Chicago, the 5 years here were amazing. From 89 to 94, when I was the 5 o'clock anchor and a late night reporter, and I sat across the desk from Larry Moore, because I got a chance to meet so many incredible people in the wine and food and beverage industry. I met Doug Frost, who was one of a handful of certified master of wines and master sommeliers in the world. Many other people have been influences on me. So by the time I got to Chicago, I was already pretty much primed that this is something that was really passionate about. And the timing was either good or bad, I don't know, but it happened that I decided I'm not going to do this newscaster thing anymore. I'm going to try to go down a different road, and it's going to revolve around food and beverage and hospitality. And that's kind of how culinary travel started.
Well, what all are you doing now with your food?
Well, my wife likes to say I'm retired. And then I say, well, why am I working harder than I've ever worked before, even though I'm retired?
Yeah.
I think she likes to say I'm retired because I don't get paid for anything that I'm really working on, which is okay because I really do enjoy it. So I'm writing for Kansas City Homes and Style magazine, and they do pay me. I'm writing a beverage column every issue and a food column every issue. The beverage column is called Sips, and the food column is called Indulgences. I'm also writing a regular column for Healthy Kansas City magazine that's usually focused on a charity. I try to focus it on either food insecurity or something dealing with like inner city food deserts or something that relates to food, but also health. And then in the last year or so, I've developed a great relationship with KCTV5, and I've done a lot of appearances on their My KC Live show, which is a lifestyle show that airs from 9 until 10, Monday through Friday. We started by doing in studio, and then the producer, Kelsey Williamson, who's a great woman, said, why don't we set some things up out in the field? And you can introduce people to these restaurants out in their local community, which is, I think, so much more effective to show people the actual space and the ambiance and the feeling that they're going to experience when they go into that restaurant, as opposed to having them come into the studio and demo a dish or two. And so we started doing that. And then about, I guess a little over a month ago now, she wrote me an email and she said, hey, we're going to do Red Friday shows in advance of every Chiefs game. And we'd like you to do a food segment and a beverage segment separate in every show. And so I started doing the math. I'm like, okay, that's 17 weeks in the season, 2 segments. That's 34 segments. That's a lot of cats to herd, right?
Yeah.
But I thought, what a great opportunity to not only showcase different neighborhoods, different restaurants, but different styles of cuisine. Yeah. And again, different people whom I know are great people. And I just want to help them out. So that's my main emphasis right now for the next, how many ever weeks we have left? I guess 12, because they're 5-0. And finding the partners who fit the cuisine of the city that we're playing and also the adult beverages of the city that we're playing.
And those are usually obviously different, not necessarily the same restaurant or
bar. It's about half and half.
Okay.
So, for example, Monday night we played the Saints. So that was pretty easy culinary wise. I thought, well, we're going to do Cajun. But then the Cajun restaurant I picked had a scheduling conflict, so that went out. Another one that I was interested in, she had to close, unfortunately. But then I found through Facebook, and this is another thing, I couldn't have done this when I was doing culinary travels because there was no Facebook. But through Facebook, I heard of this place called Swift's Cajun Cuisine. Started as a truck. Now they have a brick and mortar on like 34th and Main. And I reached out to the owner and I said, hey, I'm doing this. I'm getting really good response to you. Let my wife and I come and check you out. We did. We had a wonderful meal. And they came in on Monday and demonstrated their Cajun fried rice, which they're famous for. their Cajun noodles, which they're also famous for. They did shrimp and grits, fried catfish, and there was one other thing that they did that was really, really good. Oh, fried chicken wings. And that was wonderful. But I wanted to shine the light on a different food and beverage entity. So I invited a woman who has a mobile cocktail unit, and she invented a cocktail called the Tornado, playing off of the New Orleans drink, the Hurricane.
Yeah.
We used Restless Spirits gin to make this Tornado, and we did it live in the parking lot in her trailer. And it was
that's
just
awesome.
kind of fun and neat. And then she gets to pitch how people can book her for parties and events. And Swift gets to pitch on how people should come in and visit and try their various specialties. It's fun helping people like that.
That is.
How far out are you booked on them? I just brought up the Chiefs schedule. So how far?
I have ideas. I have concepts of shows for every single game, but I'm not really booked. I'm only booked through next week. I mean, formally, like on the books booked with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do seafood. So I reached out to one of my favorite seafood restaurants. It's fairly new, called Aqua Pennies, which is out at Town Center at 119th. And I've known Doug and Penny for a while. They have Bamboo Pennies and another couple places on the Missouri side. And their seafood restaurant, Aqua Pennies, is killer. And so they're going to come in and demonstrate a couple of seafood items. And I think they're going to shuck some oysters live on air, which should be fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm going to try to get one of the anchors to do that. And hopefully they won't like stab their hand and bleed on the air. Well, that
or maybe you want them to. That's good to be.
And then they do have a wonderful cocktail program. So the cocktail director, the bar manager, is going to do a riff on one of the San Francisco based cocktails. But the rest of the season is open. So again, somebody watching this and they think they have an idea, let me know. I'm available on Facebook. Just message Dave Eckart and we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely. We got people that know with all the different teams coming up. I bet people could get creative.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got Las Vegas Raiders, so you could go down to like Bally's, which used to be the old Flamingo Casino, and showcase Bally's like you're in Vegas, but you're not.
I thought about that. I think what I'm going to do for at least one of the Vegas shows is we have a new restaurant here in Liberty. I don't know if you guys have been to. It's called Osteria Bianchi. It's an Italian restaurant opened by a husband and wife team. It's excellent. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 best restaurants north of the river, and it is everything is made from scratch. So he does all his sauces, all his pastas, his pizza dough. Everything is made from scratch. And the wife, Kelly, and the husband worked in Vegas for 14 years. So it's kind of like, hey, you come in, do some of your stuff, and talk about what it was like. And they worked at Wynn's in the hospitality area. So they really know the Vegas scene. So I thought it would be fun to kind of just dig into what it's like to be cooking and serving that kind of clientele in Vegas.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna book one with you right now. He does not know anything about it, but it's December 21st, Houston's game, and we're gonna have to contact Weekend Bum Barbecue, and we're gonna show what Kansas City tailgating's like.
I like that, Kevin. You up for that?
Sure. I'm up for anything. Sure.
So is the game on the 21st?
Yes.
Okay, that means is that a Sunday? I don't have my calendar in front of me.
I'll let you know.
December 21st, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a Sunday.
So that would mean the Red Friday show would be on the 19th. So if we did we could set it up in the parking lot down at KCTV 5, and could have you come in and show what a Kansas City tailgate would be all about. I think they'd love that.
That'd be a fun one.
Here's what I'm going to say, though. I need to check if that's not a conflict with the Gates sponsorship.
Yeah. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
He's told me flat out no other barbecue. And I'm like, well, that eliminates like a lot of opportunities here.
Well, I'm not a.
I know you're not a restaurant. That's great.
I'm not a restaurant.
which that could give me the escape clause that I need.
Yeah.
A competition cook.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, I love it. That's great.
No, that'd be good. I did help Mariah with. She was on their one of their shows. Actually, the first one she ever did. I went and I cooked some stuff up in the parking lot, different things she brought, and man, that was the first time I learned how quickly you gotta get stuff ready and then stand there for the quick segment. But it was a lot of fun.
It goes so fast. You think that 3 minutes is a lot of time, but it's really not. And especially when you're trying to cover a lot of ground, it goes really, really fast. And that's one of the things we're kind of having issues with now is having enough content, but not too much content, because you don't want to look hurried or frantic. You want to look very casual and conversational, but you also want to have enough to show and do so that it keeps people engaged.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it, pre-cook it ahead of time, have it ready, kind of that. Yep. So, and all I know, as soon as they went to the next segment, everybody rushed all the food we had. Mariah, we had burgers, we had steaks, you name it, we had everything out there. It was plenty of food. So
yeah, I'm actually thinking about approaching Mariah from Uppercut to do one of the Denver games, because I thought maybe she could do like the Denver cut steaks and maybe have lamb and maybe some other game that she could talk about. And tie that into one of the two Denver games. I don't know which one I have her on schedule for, but I thought that would be a good opportunity for her.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, definitely. I guess that since we brought up Mariah, and I guess for those that don't know, Mariah with who's the owner of the Uppercut KC. One of the best butcher shop in Kansas City, in my opinion.
It's been voted that, I think, 4 or 5 years in a row?
Yep. Won top burger, I think 3 years in a row, and plenty of other accolades. But how did you, I know you live up north, but how did you come to get to know Mariah and Uppercut? I mean, you're in there quite a bit. I've seen you in there. You've done a lot of things with them. Talk about that relationship.
Really just happenstance, Kevin. That store is 3 minutes from my house. Okay. I live right back behind the Pleasant Valley Baptist Church off of Church Road between 291 and 152. And I heard about it, and I heard it was great, and just went in and introduced myself and talked to Dina, the general manager, met a bunch of other people. Terry Heron, who was working out as one of the butchers. I'd known him from the Price Chopper up north. And it just became a very natural. And once I tasted the product, I was hooked. Her stuff is amazing. She epitomizes what you really want to feature. You want to feature local. You want to feature really high quality, and you want to promote people who have a real passion for not only what they do but where they are. And I think she has that. And so I've been very pleased and proud to represent her on a number of forums over a number of years.
Yeah, I tell you what, she's that business has, I don't know if exploded is the right word, but just what she has done with it and taken it to levels that I didn't think were possible for that small space that she's in. I mean, the food that they serve during lunch and beyond is just amazing. I mean, that type of stuff, and can't wait for the new location to open. That's going to be a fun thing.
Yeah. So. She said, I think their last day in the current location is coming up in early November.
Yeah.
And then they're making the early move. And in the new location, she's going to have some tables with seats. Obviously, she's going to have a full service bar so people can come in and have a cocktail and adult beverage. And somebody said to her, she told me last week, somebody said, well, good luck on your new restaurant. She said, wait. I'm not opening a restaurant. I'm not opening a restaurant. I'm opening a place where people could come in, sit down and have a little lunch or a little snack and have a glass of wine or whatever, but it's not going to be a restaurant. And I said, I hear you, Mariah, because when I came home from WGN, and I told my wife that I was leaving and I was going to start this food show, she said, honey, I will support you in any way, shape, or form. But if you ever come home and say you're going to open a restaurant, I'm going to leave you.
Yeah.
And I think she meant it. And so I've kept that in the back of my mind. And I really don't, you know how people say, your barbecue was so good. You need to do this professionally. You need to open a restaurant. You need to make your sauce. They say that and they mean well, you know, you do great sandwiches, open a restaurant. No, I want to know people who have restaurants.
Yeah.
And I want to frequent them and I want to help them. But no, I don't want that kind of pressure.
I was used to say if I won Powerball, I'd be owning a food truck or restaurant the next day. But over the years, after I've met people that own them and everything, I'm like, I don't want to live that lifestyle. I don't want to. No, I'm like you. I don't mind. I love cooking for friends and family and having fun, but I don't want to do it where it becomes a job, you know? So
no, that's exactly right. And that's honestly, when I take myself back 40 years, I really, really was passionate about sports. And, you know, I still am. But I thought I was going to be a sportscaster. And then I realized then it's your job. And do you really love it as much when it's your job? And do you really love it as much when you find out that some of your heroes aren't all that heroic? Some of them are, of course, but some of them aren't. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I'll just I'll go down this road and I'll keep my other passions separate.
Good.
Yeah. So do you make your own sauce?
Me?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Because I see some of your posts that
I'm
needed.
One of my good friends is Stephanie Wilson, who's the pitmaster of the Slabs.
The Slabs.
And I use her stuff a lot. I've known Steph for probably 20 years or more.
She's been cooking forever.
When I'm doing ribs, I'll use her perk up your pork seasoning, and I'll use her sauce. When I'm doing a pork belly, I'm going to use her perk up the pork seasoning and then finish with her amazing glaze. So yeah, I'm very partial to that. Way back in the day when I knew like Harley and who's the guy at Memphis that was so wonderful? Williamson? I can't remember. But he was a Royal winner, and I would use their rubs and their sauces. But it's just lovely just to support Stephanie and others here locally.
Yeah, no, she's always a fun one to hang out with, and I use a few of her rubs in my combinations when I do competitions, and still today, I mean, people with all the stuff out there, her stuff still stands the test of time and is good. So
it doesn't, and she's got such a great personality. I mean, her line is always, "Don't threaten me with a good time." It's like, okay, Steph, don't threaten you with a good time.
Yeah.
So like tomorrow night, speaking of kind of weird connections, she's friends with a guy who owns a bar and grill out in Independence called Tom's Bar and Grill, right? And so she's been helping him with Facebook and social media. And for some reason, this guy, and he's a super nice guy, Tom Hadley, he wants to do wine tastings. And so he came to me and he said, I want to do wine tastings. And it's a good place. It's a really nice place with wonderful food, but not a place you would think of to go for a wine tasting necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, off of 40 Highway in Independence at a former, pizza joint. But I met with him and a wine representative. And I said, well, a couple of years ago, I wrote an article on pairing wine with Halloween candy. And he said, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, okay. So tomorrow night, I'm driving out to this Tom's Bar and Grill, and we still have openings if you want to come. And we're going to do Halloween candy and wine. We're going to have 5 wines that I'm featuring, and a bunch of different candy that I just bought today. Some of it is tongue in cheek, and some of it is really, wow, I never thought that would work, but it does. And it's just one of those weird little rabbit holes that you go down on occasion.
Yeah, I can see that'd be fun. It's weird. I love beer, scotch, and bourbon, but I can't do wine. It's the wine I have to drink. It has to taste like Kool-Aid. That's so I wouldn't do too well. Yes, that's weird. That's definitely so.
Give me 6 months and I can change that for you.
Yeah, okay. My wife would like that because then I'd actually drink some wine when she does.
She wouldn't feel so guilty finishing that bottle.
we belonged to Cooper's Hawk for years, and she's like, we got to quit this because I'm the only one who drinks it unless you get the sugar. And she goes, I don't want any of that stuff, and I'll drink a whole bottle of Moscato by myself. I don't care. So, of course, that's a whole nother issue that we won't go down that road.
Yeah. That would be an article for Healthy Kansas City Banks.
What not to do. So
yes.
Well, I mean, since I love talking about food and stuff. Obviously, we center around barbecue with this channel, but talk about the thing I always say about Kansas City when people aren't from here, like, what's your favorite barbecue? I'm like,
I get that all the time.
I could take you to a different place every day for 2 months, and it would change. It depends on what's going on, but obviously, the barbecue scene, as far as restaurants, has changed significantly over the past probably 5 to 10 years compared to what it used to be. Talk about that, and maybe pick out a couple of unusual ones that you think that you really enjoy, that you like, going to or referring people to.
Absolutely. It definitely has changed. And I think probably the biggest change to the scene was Q39. Love it, hate it, somewhere in between, doesn't really matter. I'm not pushing forth an opinion. I'm just saying that they really changed the game, because while he came from the competition barbecue side, he's also a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. And I don't think we ever saw that in Kansas City, where you had a gentleman who was not only a great champion pitmaster, but also a trained culinary chef. And putting that together in the environment that they have with their food and beverage program really, I think, upped the ante and opened the door for other restaurants, not exactly like that, but with a similar bent. So like if you go to Fahrenheit 325 in North Kansas City, it doesn't feel like a barbecue joint. It feels like a restaurant where you would go and have a really nice meal and an old fashioned, so that's changed. But at the same time, there's still these great little chef driven, pitmaster driven places. And I think of things like Chef Jay. I think of things like Scott's Catering and Kitchen up by the airport. And my absolute favorite, and it gets down to the person, is Wolfpack Barbecue in Columbus Park, because I just think Jared Wolf is a great guy. I work with Free Hot Soup, which provides meals for people experiencing homelessness and food insecurity.
Okay.
Jared has already donated over 300 pounds of ground brisket trim to Free Hot Soup. He's fed literally thousands of people, and he asked nothing for it. We gave him a letter showing that it's a charity, and so he can use that on his taxes to show that he's donated this. But he didn't even ask for that. I just thought that would be something that he could use and he would want. So I love that. I love, like, those three are great examples of, like, local places that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you lived in the neighborhood or you talked to people about them.
Wolfpack's one I have.
Sells out on a regular basis. Then there's a place up in town here that is, Three Halves Brewing and Barbecue.
Yep.
And I was shocked at not how good the beer had become, because the beer is really good now. They got Bucky Burmeister from oh God, I can't remember the name of down Cinderblock down in North Kansas City. They got him as a brewmaster now, but their barbecue is really good. They were voted, I think, top 10 in the city. So you got a lot. You're right, though, Kevin. It's a lot of choices, and you could go to a different place every week, and your opinion would change.
Yeah. Wolfpack, I haven't been fortunate enough to try yet. It's one of those I've heard a lot of positive things about. Scott's is, man, I wish Scott's was open more hours and options. But that's a great hint. Do you know what that place was that before he moved into there and made it a restaurant up by the airport? That was built for Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
I thought so. I was talking to his daughter, I think, who's like the general manager, and she was telling me the story. It was a day he wasn't there, but I went in, And it was one of those Kansas City days where it was like 95 degrees and it was about 85 degrees in the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little.
I still managed to have a great meal, and
Yeah.
that's a real testimony to how good the food is if you can enjoy yourself while you're sweating.
Yeah, they'd only been open a few months, and I went and took some contractors out that were working on the airport. That's when the airport was being built.
Sure.
We went to lunch there, and we're sitting there, and Scott was walking around thanking everybody, talking, and food. I just love this. I always get version of a taco there. But I told him, I said, do you know what this used to be? And he said, I heard it was a rental car. I said, yeah, I worked here. I worked for Enterprise Rental Car one time. I said, right where this wall was, this is where the counter was. And he said, well, do you want to come in back and see where we have the pit? I guess that's where you guys wash cars. So I did. I went back there, and that was where his pit was, where we used to wash cars that went through the back. It's awesome. It just shows you can do barbecue anywhere, you can, or a restaurant really anywhere. You make it your own, you figure out how it works. So
you absolutely can. One of the things I really appreciate about that place is they do some really different and interesting sides. I think that Kansas City sometimes gets stuck in the cheesy corn, beans side rut, and it's nice to find some different options there.
Yeah. The restaurants that, where I've seen the biggest change besides, just, hey, you can get a half pound of brisket, three ribs and this, the sandwiches or in the different changes, what the creativity that people are getting with it. But the sides, you're right. That almost is what makes, I think, a barbecue restaurant unique in Kansas City on what they can do with those different sides and the different twist. Shows the creativity of the chef or the pit master that they have. So.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best sandwiches is, actually, down at Wolfpack, Jared does a pork belly burn end sandwich that is really, really good.
That's pork belly is one of my favorites. When you get it just right, where it's just the crispy on the outside and the tenderness, and that's.
I've been experimenting with it. I've done 3 now, which is just a drop in the water. But the last one I did, I think I finally figured out how much time in the smoker, what to put on it to caramelize it, how much time in the oven. And the last time I chopped it all up and cooked it all at the same time. This time I just would take a slice of how much ever I was going to use and caramelize that, and then chop that up and just left the others to go. So I was caramelizing it as I went. And I invented what I called ramen Q. So I put the pork belly burn ends over pork ramen with some green onions that were diced up, and then a little of the amazing glaze over the top of that. And oh my God, it sang.
That does sound good. Yeah,
it was good.
That looked good. That looked real good.
Well, let's talk about that, Dave. What do you cook on at home as far as for barbecue? What's your machine or what do you use? Grill. And then what's your favorite go-to kind of that you like to do for the family?
I've got a Weber Genesis grill, which I like because you could do offset grilling, and it gets nice and hot. So you can get it up to 500 degrees, and you can put whatever you're making, steak, burgers, whatever it is, chicken up on the top shelf until it's ready to finish down low. So I use that for just basic grilling. For smoking, I've just got a little electric grill. Quite honestly, it's it's got a really small smoke box.
Yeah.
I like to use softer, sweeter woods, so like apple and peach, pear when I could find it. I don't generally do things that take an awful long time to cook because of that, because I'd have to restoke the smoke box every 2 hours. Yeah. So I have a tendency to gravitate toward chicken. I'll do ribs, but I really like baby back over spare ribs. And I will do a lot of different types of pork. I like to get things from Paradise Locker Meats up in Trimble. They do some amazing heritage Berkshire pork, and take it, brine it, rinse it off, season it up, and then smoke it for maybe a couple of hours, and then wrap it up and finish it in the oven. So my wife likes barbecue, but she doesn't love it to be too smoky. So I try to enhance it with the smoke, but not dominate it with the smoke, and then finish it up in the oven. So you get the taste of the meat that is hopefully, again, enhanced by, by a little bit of the smoking, but you don't just taste the smoke.
Yeah.
I just smoked 3 split breasts just yesterday, and didn't have a chance to brine them, but I used a couple different rubs on them and smoked them for about an hour and a half, and they were like at 155. So I'm literally just going to finish them in a really hot oven to get the skin nice and crispy. And once they get up to that right internal temperature, good to go.
There you go. That's
what
good.
got you into liking barbecue? Was it through your journalism and all that, or is
No,
it just something you
living here? I mean, it's almost unavoidable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I never had barbecue growing up, and in suburban Chicago, you'd go into the city, and their version of barbecue was to boil a bunch of ribs and then throw a bunch of sauce on it and stick it in the oven. And I'm like, I don't really like this. This doesn't taste very good to me. So when I came here in 1989, it's awful. I came here in 1989, and the general manager and the news director at KNBC took me to Arthur Bryant's. And it was an epiphany. I had never had anything like that in my life. I was like, what is this magic? And so when I got here, it was almost like learning about wine. I started learning about barbecue. I started hanging around, going to the barbecue contests. And it was easy to learn because I was on TV. So everybody wanted Dave Eckart to come and, go by the booth and, visit their tailgate. And so I was invited. I remember Maria Antonia and I were invited to judge the Blue Springs Blaze Off.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know, 1990, 1991, something like that. And it was a lousy spring, cold, nasty, rainy day, but we just had a great time. And then I went down to the Royal, and I was just like, my mind was blown. You drive into the West Bottoms, and there's this smoke haze covering the entire. You start to smell it, and you're like, oh my God, what is that? It's like being in the barbecue zone or something. It was just magic. And I started meeting all of these people. And learning of their stories and where they came from and their passion. And I think what really, really hooked me, I don't know how I did it, but I convinced the assignment manager at KNBC to let me spend Friday night at the Royal with a team and do the whole 24 hours at the Royal and show what really goes on, how they cook, why they cook. And the whole ambiance and atmosphere, Friday night at the Royal is just
what better night not to spend at the Royal?
When does the 24 hours start that you're actually showing your boss? That's the question.
Yeah. No, I didn't show everything. That's for sure.
Okay.
American Royal After Dark.
Yeah. And then I ended up judging the Royal, never the Open, always the Invitational for almost 10 years straight. Even when I was up in Chicago, I would fly down for that weekend. Just because it was just so much fun and was so ingrained into my psyche, my personality.
Yeah, that's so. Have you been to the Royal? Do you go every year, or
I try to? Yeah,
I do. Okay.
There have been a couple of years I've missed just because of traveling, but yeah, I try to go every year. Usually, Stephanie throws some sort of a party, so I'm out there for that. Yeah. They have a big fundraiser that I like to go to that involves a lot of local chefs that I know. I try to get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to get down there for at least a few hours every year. It's a unique experience.
I gave you some context, Elizabeth?
I haven't reached out to them yet, but I do appreciate that.
Yep. No, and I need to reach out to. I actually sit on the American Royal Committee for the barbecue. I work with the international teams, so I need to reach out to them. I'll see if I can help steer that along for you.
Well, yeah, and I'd like to talk to you about that. That would be an interesting article to pursue international teams competing in a barbecue competition. Might be interesting to talk to some of them.
Yeah, no, and I tell you what, they so last year I was asked to assist because I knew the people that had done it for years were going to retire from doing that, and I helped. But and the funny thing, how I was picked out as a volunteer to help is because I had flown to the Netherlands the year before and cooked a barbecue competition. They saw that online and they thought, oh, here we go.
This guy knows everything about international barbecue. He's been to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious, but it is. It's so much fun. I mean, the teams are just so gracious to come over here and, trying to help them. I've been sending emails. Okay, here are the places you need to get your meat scheduled ahead of time to order ahead. Here's the grocery stores close to you. Here's all the different things that they need to do. But the Costa Rica team. I love them, which actually I need to email them. They actually got a call at the Jack yesterday. So that was really, actually they got 2 calls at the Jack. Now that I think about it. Yeah, they got two high calls. They're called Justice Barbecue. Great people. They gave me some of their coffee. And it's some of the best coffee in the world. And they told me they're going to bring more this year. So that's good. But yeah, they would, that would be great. That'd be good. I know a lot of them would love to do that. So
I'd love to do that. And I think, I really think that the, not just the magazine, I think the television station would be interested in something like that too. Cause that it's not just interesting content. It's also really visual.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it shows, I think a lot of local people that are not associated with, that don't cook, they know it's a big party. I don't think they really comprehend. I've always said on the committee, the 2 years now I'm in, I'm like, man, there's a way we got to promote this, but I don't know if people really understand how big and where people come from all over the world, not just the United States. I mean, that's impressive as it is, but from literally all over the world and what it takes to get here to do that.
I think that's a great story.
Yeah, that'd be a great segment. And don't forget, you come by. I throw a party with the Smokin' Elvis's, Irwin's Pit Crew, and a barbecue team. We call it the Barbecue Compound. Last year we had people leaving big corporate tents coming to ours. We had like 300 plus people last year. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
The Elvises they have for years, they towards the end of the night, 3 or 4 of them put on the jumpsuits and the wigs and everything. And they used to walk around, but then the party would die. So last year they stayed there and people were just coming in, getting pictures with them and everything. And it's a good time. So
that's a good hook.
Yeah. Have you ever cooked, participated in a competition yourself or helped Stephanie or anybody?
I've helped. I've never done it myself. And I'm not sure if I was a help or a hindrance, quite honestly. But I have done some things with Stephanie, like there's it's grown into quite a big charity event called Wings for Water that they do every year in Lee Summit. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine organized that, started out on his back deck as a bet between he and a neighbor who had the best chicken wings. And it's grown into this massive event where they raise tens of thousands of dollars for water relief around the world and cook up hundreds of pounds of wings. So Stephanie for 2 years and I actually cooked wings. And then I realized not only was I hot and sweaty and I smelled like smoke and my wife wouldn't let me sleep in the same bed, but I was also really, really tired, and it would be much more fun to just come out and judge.
There you go.
So I told Chris Tunney, who's the founder, I said, I want to support you guys. I'll have you on TV if I can, but can I just come out and judge and just eat wings and, and rate them? I don't think I'm cut out to do competition barbecue.
Yeah. I was just curious. I'm solo, but I have people like Brian helps me a lot at competitions. I have people help me. And for a while there, I was looking for a teammate, and somebody come help me and we'd get done and be like, so what do you think? They're like, Kevin, that was fun, but you're crazy. I'm not doing it. Yeah. You got to be a little insane to do the competition thing. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of like traveling with somebody, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
You can like them and go have beers with them and, have a meal with them. But, spending 7 nights on the road in the Netherlands with them is much different.
It's a whole different ball game. That's for sure.
Yeah. That'll be fun. If you get out there, it'll be fun. Let us know. We'll I'll be walking around.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be in touch with all y'all and we'll make that happen.
Definitely. So what do you have next, Dave, on the calendar? Obviously you're still doing these segments with KCTV5. What's next on the big
I'm excited about this. I've been looking forward to this. Then tomorrow night I've got my very, very serious Halloween candy and wine pairing out at Tom's Bar and Grill. Very serious.
Candy corn in the sky.
On Thursday, I'm going to do my first class out at the Kansas City Culinary Center in downtown Overland Park. I'm doing a Wine 101 class. So that's, as it sounds, a general introduction to wine. So we'll be featuring 5 different wines with some cheese and meat and crackers and just basic stuff. It's not a wine snobby wine, technical wine exploration. It's more about, here are some of the main grapes you're going to see. Here's where they come from in the world, and here's generally what they taste like and what they go with when it comes to cuisine. Just kind of educating people, raising them up a little bit. And then I've got the two Fox 4 KCTV5 segments on Friday, on Red Friday, in advance of the San Francisco game. So yeah, busy week.
Yeah, that's good.
What got you into wine in the first place?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was, again, one of those epiphanies where I'm pretty sure it was a wine class that my wife and I took when we lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A very good instructor who was very knowledgeable, but also just fun and funny and passionate about wine. And I tasted a particular wine from Bordeaux, which is the home of Cabernet Sauvignon, for folks who don't know that. And it was from 1961. This would have been in like 1987 or 88 that I tasted this. So here I was tasting this 25, 26, 27-year-old wine. And I was just blown away at how good, interesting, different, unique it was. And it really piqued my interest to learn more about, how you can make a product like that can last all of those years and evolve all of those years, and be different with the time of year you're drinking it, the type of food you're having with it, the temperature that it's at, the kind of mood that you're in. So many things change. Once you get into learning about wine, you want to learn more, because it never ends. It's almost every day I find out about something that I didn't know, or I try something that I've never tried before. But really, that combined with traveling the world and visiting all of those wine regions and meeting winemakers and winery owners and seeing vines that were 110, 120 years old, tasting grapes from those wines, being everywhere from Washington, Oregon, California, down into South America, Chile, and Argentina, over the other side of the planet to South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, into Europe, Italy, and Spain, and France. It's amazing. It's history, but it's also life. It's the way people live in so many parts of the world, and it's been a real great journey meeting those people, tasting their passion in the glass, and actually tasting it, where they live. One story I like to tell about experiences that, I've probably had that fewer than people who've walked on the moon. We were in Pompeii in Italy, a city that was buried by a volcano 2,000 years ago. And one of the local wineries had done DNA research to find out where vineyards were planted inside Pompeii, and then what grape varieties were planted in those vineyards. And then they replanted those exact grape varieties in those spots and grew grapes and made wine 2,000 years after it had been destroyed by a volcano. And sitting there with them, having a glass of this wine that was produced by the same variety in the same vineyard site that was obliterated, and drinking it and looking at the volcano in the distance was just like mind-blowing.
Yeah,
that is
that's pretty cool. And that shows you the passion that they have for that.
Yeah,
the wine, and it's not just everything that goes into it. They wanted the history to come into. They wanted to get back to bring Pompeii back to what it had done before. So that's the
right.
But
staring out of Vesuvius and drinking a wine that's 2,000 more years old, at least the variety is. Again, it just blows your mind sometimes. It's amazing.
So after learning all that stuff in the wine and falling in love with it, you rep. I'm taking it. You rep some wines or.
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I've always stayed on the journalistic side of things, and I like to tell stories about wine. I love to do wine and food pairings. It's one of the reasons that I'm going to be doing some of these classes at the Kansas City Culinary Center. I've got another one, 2 coming up in December. One is on pairing wines with your holiday table, and another one is wine and chocolate pairing. So I like to do educational type things, but I don't really like to rep specific wines. For me, wine, it's kind of a lot like the restaurants I was talking about. I love the people aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, I love the folks who are behind the scenes, making the wine, tending the vines. I've got a lot of friends in town and around the country and around the world who are importers and distributors and, you know, wine shop owners. And it's fun meeting them and helping them. So I try to use what little celebrity and little status I have to kind of, you know, help spread some good vibes out there.
Well, could you use that little celebrity status for me and go meet some moonshiners?
I could certainly be talked into that, Brian. Sure.
Brian, we don't want you in moonshine. That's for sure. Yeah. That's hilarious. Have you been up to Holiday Distillery up in Weston? I assume.
You know, I've not been up there since it changed over. I've heard really good things, and I've tried their products.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to imagine that was actually McCormick because
exactly when that changed over. But yeah, it is. I've been there a few times now, and it's just amazing what they've done. The hospitality, the people that run the operation and everything, they do a great job. It's a neat that I could see. Well, there's a variety of things. Weston itself would be a neat segment, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wife and I stayed there for our anniversary, and oh my God, we found a little speakeasy. We had to go in a back door and up the stairs. Little guy plinking the guitar there, and it's a neat. There's just so many little things in Weston that makes it really cool. So
it's a really cool vibe. But one thing I'll say about the spirits industry in Kansas City is we've got some really top-notch spirits producers, you know, in the metro. I mentioned Restless Spirits was being used in a cocktail we did this week, but there's Rieger, there's Lifted, there's Tomstown, there's Mean Mule. I don't know if you've ever had the agave-based spirits from Mean Mule.
No.
You should check those out. He does a poblano pepper infused agave spirit that is unbelievably good. There's Union Horse. I mean, we've just got some really solid spirits producers in the metro, and of course Rieger is that's a cool place to go to.
That is a fun one to go to.
It is.
I know something I just thought of. KC Foodie Fest, is that?
Yeah, we're kind of have put a pin in that for now.
Okay.
I've wanted to get back into it, but I think I just have too many balls in the air right now. I don't think I could devote enough time and attention to do it. But I think down the road that will return.
Yeah, I mean those types of things, and you're right. It takes an awful lot, I can imagine, behind the scenes to get everything going. But
it was like a full-time job, and it was a lot of stress. And I kind of like the rapid nature of what I'm doing now, where it's like week by week things hit. That's kind of the deadline that my mind works on. Being in news for all those years is like every day is different. You know, you're on a deadline to get a story done, to get a live shot on, whatever it might be. And Foodie Fest was just like a long haul, you know, with a lot of stress.
Yeah. I mean, I attended last year's. I had a good time. It was enjoyable talking with the people that
we were happy to have you there. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun, and I met a lot of great people, different products. Stephanie was there with her products. I can't remember the gentleman's name. I know I have their cards sitting here, but they speaking of spirits, they had the gin. They were about
that was Lifted Spirits.
Lifted, yes, yeah,
Lifted,
great. And I'm not a gin person, but I tell you what, they had some that were actually pretty tasty. I enjoyed some of those. So
you should taste Restless Spirits gin, because Bené Shannon, who's the only female distiller in the state, she's a chemistry teacher by training, and she's not a gin lover either. So when she was asked to create a gin, what she did is she took all the botanicals and separated them and tasted them all separately. And then she put together a blend that she liked. So it doesn't taste like a gin, like you're falling into a juniper plant. You know, it's got characteristics that non-gin lovers would really like, and I think that might be something that you would enjoy.
Yeah, you're right, because I'm not into all the floral taste and all that.
No.
That's usually what turns me off. So, yeah,
I agree.
Well, it's been a great episode. Great talking.
Yes, it
with
is.
you. Great meeting you after lots of reschedules and trying to get it back going.
No, I'm glad we finally did. This was truly a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
That's good. No, it's great seeing you again, Dave. I'm glad we had you on here, and we'll definitely look forward to seeing you at some different events down the road.
Cool.
American Royal, which is only a few weeks away.
We'll definitely see you there. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll get in touch. We'll get in touch with each other on possibly the international teams. That might be a fun.
I'd love it. I'd love it
to do. So.
Stay in touch, guys.
You probably
All
get hold of KCTV5 for the kids queue out there too.
There you go.
The Royal.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that'd be a big one. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, have a great night.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on TV these upcoming weeks with the different episodes for the Chiefs games. Okay.
You bet.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.
All right. Have a great night.
you.
Take
Thanks.
care.
You too.
Bye-bye.